Thank you. Most of you know me. I'm Michael Werner. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Alliance. I want to welcome all of you to another great day in La Jolla. I think it's been a terrific meeting so far. I hope for most of you, much of the feedback we've gotten has been terrific. We're looking forward to a terrific day again today. It's my pleasure to introduce Randy Mills, who is the president and CEO of the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. Many of you probably know that Dr. Mills runs the state's $3 billion stem cell agency. He was previously the CEO of Osiris Therapeutics, a company he took public and built into a profitable stem cell company. Prior to that, he started his career at the University of Florida Tissue Bank, was co-founder and VP of Regeneration Technologies. He invented BioCleanse. He's currently on the board of the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine, as well as the Wake Forest Institute of Regenerative Medicine Advisory Board. He has a Ph.D. in drug development, a bachelor's degree also from the University of Florida. And without any further introduction, I'd like to introduce our colleague, Randy Mills. Randy?
Go Gators. Okay. So I'd like to get started today and speak just a little bit about the work that we're doing at the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, because it's incredibly important for the audience of this room to understand the programs that are available to them. We are right now in the process of launching a new strategic plan for the agency that will take it for the next 5 years going forward. I don't have time to go into all of it today, but I'm going to give you some highlights of it and hopefully so let you get the flavor of it, and then stay tuned, watch, progress, comment, participate, particularly as we move forward. So the first thing when we look into strategic planning is how much longer should we go? Everybody talks about the agency. When I came to the agency, the assumption was we would be dead in 2017. Here's the truth. We have 5 years of us being able to make significant funding opportunities ahead of us. What do I mean by that? $200 million a year in new awards every year for the next 5 years. So we have $1 billion left to deploy. That's a pretty important key message. So where are we now? Like, what have we done so far? So we have deployed $1.3 billion so far to disease-specific research. When I say disease-specific, I mean there's versus things like buildings or infrastructure that we can't point to a specific disease. But $1.3 billion for disease-specific research. You can see the breakout, the majority going to neuro, cancer, cardiovascular, but we're pretty readily distributed throughout the entire spectrum of regenerative medicine. Out of that, we have currently 15 now active clinical trials, including 2 that are phase 3 pivotal trials that we're partnering with. And so you can see the list of that. Up until now, the vast majority of our funding has gone to academia. Now, the 91.9 is a little skewed here because things like research funding towards or funding we had in our budget for building institutes would obviously go to academia and not industry. But with that said, if you look just at our clinical stage programs, 80% of our funding in our clinical stage programs is going to academia and only 20% to industry. So this tells us a couple of things. One is we still don't have the industry engagement that we need at CIRM in order to fulfill our mission. Because our goal is to be able to have these stem cell treatments ultimately go on and affect actual patients' lives. And industry needs to be part of that if we're to be successful. The other takeaway from this slide, though, is, as I talk about it, is the answer to this is not lowering the bar for industry. It's making sure that our programs are usable, they're available, they fit the needs of industry, but the standards need to be the same. The same high-level standards for safety and efficacy and quality in the applications and the programs we fund need to be the same, irrespective of whether or not it's an industry or academic application. So one of the first things we did in our strategic planning process was to make sure we had the mission we wanted to have going forward. And so this is not something to do like every day, but every once in a while it's good to take a break and look around and say, okay, have we lost our way? And really ask some hard questions. One of those questions is, what is your mission? I'm pleased to say that to accelerate stem cell treatments to patients with unmet medical needs is overwhelmingly adopted and confirmed as our mission. So 96% of the stakeholders who responded agreed that this is what our mission should be. More importantly, 100% of our board of directors said that this is what our mission should be. So as we talk about what we're doing going forward from a strategic planning process, the thing to know is this is the immovable. This is the thing we will always orient towards. How we get there is open for debate, and we can talk about different pathways and strategies to achieve this mission, but the mission itself is not open for debate. Okay, so we're, again, back to where are we today? So we've spent about $2 billion so far as an agency, and what we've done is we've built some really beautiful pieces. We have 5 fundamental areas that we fund at CIRM. So we fund infrastructure, so things like buildings. There's a building down the street which we co-funded. We have 12 major facilities throughout the state of California. We have 3 alpha clinics. We have a genomics center. We have an IPS bank. So we've built some beautiful infrastructure. We've spent $370 million on educational programs. So we train everything from high school students through postdocs right now. And then we fund the continuum of development from discovery stage research through translational and then ultimately clinical stage research. But the problem is, and I would say maybe flip it the other way, the opportunity is we've built these very, very beautiful pieces, but they existed as pieces. They did not exist as an integrated program where each of these pieces worked together with the other piece in a coordinated fashion to produce an ultimate result. So a major shift at CIRM that we've introduced, and we introduced it in 2.0, and it's now sweeping through with the finalization of the strategic plan, is that all of these pieces are coming together and being assembled so that they are all working in a coordinated fashion to accelerate stem cell treatments to patients with unmet medical needs. So everything we do, every program we have is going to be complementary to another program that we have, and it will all be for the purpose of accelerating stem cell treatments to patients with unmet medical needs. We introduced, as part of this, in January, we introduced a program called CIRM 2.0 for clinical stage research. And this was a pretty big step for us. Prior to the CIRM 2.0 clinical being introduced, on average, it would take, if you had an idea for a program that you wanted to take to the clinic, it would take you on average 22 months in order to get a funding decision from us. When we introduced this for clinical in January, we took that time from 22 months to 100 days. We are always open, and we conduct 12 reviews a year for clinical stage programs, and that was a great start. And so we went from 22 months to less than 100 days. We've taken some very real time out of this equation, and then we started working our way up that food chain towards translational research and discovery stage research. And I'm very happy to say that the board approved in the July board meeting, and we are now implementing the same kinds of programs for discovery and translational. That will always be open. You'll always know when you can apply for them. They'll run twice a year, and they'll run forever. You won't have to guess when we're going to put out an initiative. So we've basically set up the system that works now a lot more like a continuous engine than these different pop-up sort of initiative based programs that we used to have, and that's a good deal. The reason why, too, so the very obvious part of our mission to accelerate stem cell treatments to patients with unmet medical needs is that there's an actual person at the other end of that equation who desperately needs something. And so priority above all others is accelerating these treatments to those patients. A secondary benefit of that, though, just using the clinical change that we made, where we were able to cut out about 20 months in the development cycle of our programs, is an economic benefit. So if you just do the math, the time value of money math associated with that, that cuts out about $400 million of expense in developing a therapy if it ultimately goes on and makes it to market. So time obviously matters first and foremost to patients, but it has a huge, huge impact in the cost of these therapies that are being developed. So this is kind of an analogy you can think about what we do at CIRM and our view of it. We are pushing this giant boulder, which are stem cell treatments, over this hill into the valley of cures below where the patients are. Now, you might say, hey, why would you want to roll a giant boulder onto a bunch of patients? That doesn't seem very nice. Okay, that's where the analogy breaks down a little, but what if I were to tell you the boulder was a giant boulder of love and happiness? Okay, now it's all okay. So we want to get this giant boulder. It's heavy, but a giant boulder of heavy love and happiness over this mountain and into this valley of cures below. And what we have done, we've existed historically as an agency, as a pushing agency. We do things that try to push this agency up the hill, and that's great. That is what we should be doing. That is we've done a great job. It's been the agency's been incredibly successful in these efforts, but when you go through strategic planning, you want to look at it from all different sides and think about all the other kind of things you can do. And so our new strategic plan introduces Tonka trucks. And so instead of this initiative-based CIRM just pushing, we've now built this CIRM 2.0 giant pushing machine. It's a bulldozer, and it's all these pieces working together with all this different, and we can get into it at some other time, all these different initiatives that we have that are pushing. But we also looked at it and said, you know what, boy, this would be a lot easier if there was somebody on the other side of this equation pulling. Go back to my slide, 91.9. Right? We don't have nearly enough industry engagement. What does industry do? Industry pulls. So as part of our strategic plan, the second part of our strategic plan is we need to pull. We need to come up with programs that pull, and we have a number of different institutes, programs, and being led by Chairman Thomas that are working on pulling initiatives. So pulling industry into this equation so they help move this boulder, giant boulder of love and happiness, over the hill. And then the last part of it is the hill's too damn big. Okay, and the hill represents the regulatory and other barriers that stand in the way of these cures. Other countries have recognized this and are modifying it. The Japanese Food and Drug Administration, the PMDA, has already implemented this kind of action. The average time it takes for a stem cell therapy to go through the IND enabling work just to get into a clinical trial is 8 years. It's 3.2 for a small molecule for the same required activities. So the hill we need to work on, and we call that leveling. We're not talking about making it easier. We're just talking about leveling this playing field. So that's the strategy that we're introducing at CIRM. Push, get this stuff over the hill. Pull, get industry involvement, and then level. Work with FDA in a cooperative way to have meaningful regulatory reform. If we are successful with this strategic plan, this is what we anticipate seeing. 50 new clinical trials. So we already have 15. So we're talking about 65 stem cell treatments in the clinic within the next 5 years that cover at least 20 unique diseases. We want to see at least 5 in pediatric. We want to see at least 10 in orphan indications. We call these things called progression events. So this is a quality attribute. We don't want to just have things come in to fail. So we want to have at least a third of everything we partner ultimately go on and progress. Right now that number sits at 11%. So we're going to go from 11 to 33% with that. We want to cut the preclinical time in half. We have a whole platform of things. Maria Milan, who's in here, if you get a chance to talk with her, she would love to talk with you about what they're doing to reduce the time we spend pre-IND. We're going to implement a new regulatory paradigm. and whether FDA likes it or not. And then lastly, this concept of pull. We want to have at least half of the programs that come into CIRM partnered by the time they leave the experience. So that's the bulk of this strategy of push, pull, and level that we're doing with CIRM. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very exciting. We have a lot of money that we're going to deploy in a very smart and coordinated way over the next 5 years. $1 billion over 5 years really ought to be able to move the needle. We're going to make sure we spend that money wisely and with having the greatest impact and effect that we can. So what do you need to know about what we're doing? First is we have programs now for every stage of development, from the earliest discovery stage through translation, through clinical trials. As I said, we fund pivotal clinical trials right now. We'll give up to $20 million per award, and we will give more than one award if it's meritorious. The process is much, much faster. So if you have a clinical stage program that you're coming to partner with us, we can not just get you a decision, but we can get you funding within 100 days, a funding decision within 60. What we're doing, though, in return for that is creating true partnerships. So we are not a check-writing agency. We are an active shareholder or investor in these programs. And what we mean by that is we are going to do everything we can to make your program successful. So we have a pool of subject matter experts that we provide and bring to bear on these problems. So if you're having a problem, we have a problem, and we do whatever we can to fix it. Part of that is real patient participation. This is not a joke. This is not a placating thing at CIRM. We have patient and patient advocates involved from every step, from review of the application through administration of the award and everything in between, and it's very important to us. We're open to a variety of things. So it doesn't have to just be a stem cell, a biologic that acts on a stem cell, a small molecule that acts on a stem cell, a device, a tool is fair game. Importantly, understand that there are opportunities for both California and non-California entities. So you don't have to be located within the state of California to take advantage of these programs. I will tell you, the best deal you're going to get is if you are in or you come to the state of California. But if you're not, if you at least bring your research here, the research that you conduct in California will be covered under our allowable costs. So you should really, no matter where you are, you should think about what you can do with California and CIRM. We're ready when you are. These programs are open. They're wide open. Take advantage of them. Look into them, but understand that this isn't just about volume through the turbine or through the jet engine. This is about quality through it. So these are highly, highly competitive. So with that, I will end push, pull, level. And if anyone has any questions, don't contact me. No, contact Kevin. You can contact me. But if you want a response, contact Kevin McCormick, who's our head of public communications. Thank you guys very much.